Good morning. Welcome to the forecast discussion for December 7th, 2012. It is of course a Friday morning. And we do have some slippery weather conditions out there in portions of northeastern and central Pennsylvania, and that could expand into northwestern New Jersey, the Hudson River Valley, and Connecticut. As of 8:42 a.m., as you can see, we have temperatures below freezing in much of Connecticut, uh, the Hudson River Valley, northwestern New Jersey, and getting into eastern Pennsylvania. Now, we have a warm front at the mid levels of the atmosphere approaching, and that has moved a little bit faster than what was forecast and has produced some precipitation over central and eastern Pennsylvania. Now, many locations are already above freezing, but if you get a little bit of a heavier burst, especially with dew points still in the upper 20s here, you could end up with a little bit of freezing rain, especially a little bit higher up in the elevations and in some of your colder valleys where that cold air could get trapped. Also notice in portions of the Hudson River Valley in northwestern New Jersey, we are below freezing. Now the key here is to balance out the way that the atmosphere is set up right now. And what I mean by that is that we have very dry air over portions of the Hudson River Valley in northwestern New Jersey. So initially, as this precipitation is moving in, it's falling in the form of virga, which is basically precipitation is falling from the clouds but evaporates before touching the surface. Now, the key here is that that keeps us cold here, but at the same time limits the amount of precipitation that falls. In the meantime, we also have warm air transport from the southwest towards the northeast, which is going to warm up our temperatures overall. So it's going to be a balancing act through at least 11 a.m. this morning for the potential for some freezing rain and freezing drizzle in these locations from northwestern Connecticut on south and west towards the Hudson River Valley, around Poughkeepsie, and down towards northwestern New Jersey, and then, of course, northeastern and central Pennsylvania. As this warm air invades, temperatures will rise above freezing, and we'll just deal with scattered showers for today on through the rest of this weekend. So, up to about 11 a.m., keep an eye on the observations here and on the roadways, and take a little bit of time for your travel. Now, here we have the radar here, and you can see that it looks pretty impressive, but most of this is not reaching the ground and is relatively light in nature. Like, for example, over portions of northeastern Pennsylvania, much of this is not reaching the ground. It's rather scattered and rather light, but when you're dealing with freezing rain or freezing drizzle, it doesn't take much to create some problems on the roadways. So, again, use some caution through about 11 a.m. Thereafter, as you can see, going all the way back to the upper Midwest, with waves of showers approaching from the west. And what we can expect from this afternoon all the way through this weekend are these waves of showers moving through within the warm sector of our storm that is lifting up through the Great Lakes. And as a result, we can expect variable cloud cover this weekend with on and off showers here and there. Not a complete washout, but a bit of a nuisance. In the meantime, also our temperatures are going to remain above normal, with lows in the 40s and highs generally in the 50s. Monday, we could actually push 60 degrees in many locations in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, maybe even portions of the New York City metropolitan area as well. Taking a look at our infrared satellite picture, you can see we really don't have any surface warm front here. This is all being driven by a disturbance at the mid-levels, producing this precipitation. Here is the cold front that's going to blow through on Tuesday morning, producing some heavy downpours and also leading to our temperatures crashing throughout the day on Tuesday through the 40s and into the 30s. In the meantime, all locations ahead of this cold front can expect periods of showers and variable cloud cover. You can see at the mid-levels exactly where the cutoff is with this warm front and the lifting associated with it, with all these blues and oranges in the cloud tops signifying lifting in the atmosphere. So clearly we have this subtropical disturbance right here that is amping up this entire pattern just a bit to create a little bit of an issue this morning. When we take a look at the latest water vapor satellite picture, I want to point out first, notice the Pacific. Say goodbye to our huge upper level low that was sitting in the Gulf of Alaska. We're starting to get a ridge building into the Gulf of Alaska, and that's going to lead to our pattern slowly but surely changing. In the meantime, notice that the Atlantic is remaining rather stormy, with a powerful storm setting up a negative NAO pattern eventually over much of the Atlantic and also building into Greenland and also northeastern Canada. So pattern is changing. gradually. I know it's not as fast as some of you may want, mostly due to some individuals out there calling for December to Remember and all this other nonsense. But it is changing nonetheless, and pretty much on track to what I've been telling my premium members for the past couple of weeks. Taking a look at the latest forecast analysis from the European Mile Guidance via the Penn State EWOL website, an excellent website for all your mile needs. Here we are this evening again. Here's our storm forming out in the Atlantic. Here's our warm sector that we're under, invading the northern Mid-Atlantic. Again, this isn't a strong storm, but it does create enough of a nuisance to produce some showers. You can see at the mid-levels we have a nice southwesterly wind developing from the Gulf of Mexico up the east coast. So we clearly have a nice warming environment setting up here. On Saturday evening, we have the cold front trying to approach but stalls out and washes out. We have one disturbance that's lifting up through the St. Lawrence River Valley. We remain under a warm sector, under warm conditions for Saturday. And then on Sunday, we are pretty much in that warm sector again. Pretty much notice the storm track from basically the Four Corners to the St. Lawrence River Valley. Okay? Now, with that type of storm track setting up, it forces the polar vortex to start to drop south. Here's our ridge really starting to become established over the Pacific. This is important. This is a key factor to starting to drive our pattern change that will evolve slowly but surely, as I expected. And here's our Arctic air just piling up and building up over portions of central and northern Canada, just ready to drop south, and we can see a little bit of that bleeding south over the northern plains. Again, for Sunday, look for variable cloud cover, a threat of showers here and there, but not a washout at all, and temperatures remaining above normal in the 50s. By the time we get into Monday, very warm conditions ahead of another strong cold front as we have an area low pressure rocket up towards the St. Lawrence River Valley. Again, notice how our pattern's starting to change here. A stronger upper level low towards around 50-50, 50 north, 50 west. Here's our ridging starting to build around Greenland. Here's our ridging becoming sustained and building and getting stronger over the Pacific. And here's our broad trough over much of North America. And here's our polar vortex starting to redevelop over portions of Canada. So we're gradually seeing changes here in our weather pattern. And by the time we get into Tuesday, that cold front blasts through the region. We're going to see rainfall possibly changing over to a little bit of snow at the end of this frontal passage as the cold air really rushes in towards the coast on Tuesday afternoon. Tuesday morning is actually going to be the warmest time period for Tuesday. So if you're heading out on Tuesday morning with a light jacket, you're going to need a heavier jacket by the time you head home. So you're going to see temperatures crashing throughout the day and the potential for a little bit of rain, snow at the very end of this cold front passage. We'll have to watch that carefully. Make sure there's no little surprise waves of low pressure that could develop along this frontal passage. Not expecting that, but again, when you have a strong thermal gradient like this, it's a good idea just to keep an eye on that. Moving on through the rest of the week, high pressures in control with chilly weather conditions as we fall back to reality, with our temperatures pretty much hung up in the mid-40s for most locations. Notice how this pattern is set up. We have clearly a strong negative NAO pattern setting up. And look where our polar vortex is starting to set up over portions of southeastern and eastern Canada. This is a key indication here. We still have to crush this ridge here, but we're clearly moving in the right direction. Our ridge remains sustained over the Pacific. We have a disturbance trying to lift over the edge here. This was probably a bit overdone. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But that's what keeps this ridge alive for a little bit longer. But notice our cold air mass is pretty much becoming sustained and locked in over much of eastern and central Canada and bleeding into the northern mid-Atlantic. So clearly we are seeing changes setting up in our weather pattern. As we move on through the next 10 days thereafter, look at what we have here. Ridge sustained over the Pacific, very broad trough with just a number of disturbances moving within the subtropical jet stream here along the country. We have a upper level low trying to sustain itself over portions of Quebec, and we have very strong high level of 500 millibar levels over portions of Greenland and into northeastern Canada. So we're clearly seeing a pattern change. You can clearly see colder weather is on the way right around 12:15 and beyond, as I've been advertising. Now, how this evolves in terms of specifics, rain, snow, all that stuff, still way too early to say. But this low pressure system and this disturbance here, right here, this is something we're going to keep an eye on as we move on through the middle of next week. Something to keep an eye on as we move forward, as we clearly have a evolving and developing weather pattern that could lead to some interesting weather by the time we move into the end of this month. Something to keep an eye on. Well, that is your forecast discussion for today. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. You can follow the latest weather information at nynjpaweather.com and nynjpaweather on Twitter and Facebook. Have a great day. Be safe out there.